Good afternoon. Happy Savage Saturday. Keepers of the Cash. Gary B., the Casual Comic Guy here with Savage Saturday Comic Review, episode 131, and I'm excited to bring you something different today, something I've been wanting to bring to you from an issue of the Savage Sword of Conan, but I wanted to present it in a fun way. Hopefully, I'm going to accomplish that today. Now, I do have some drinks on hand. I'm just getting over a cold. My voice is still in and out, so please excuse me for any inconsistencies in my narrative, in my voice quality, or any coughs that may occur. Now, in this issue, the Savage Sword of Conan 214, with a cover by Julie Bell, there is an article in here, and this was part of when they're doing the Conan files, and they would highlight a different article with each issue. And this one says, Conan File, an account of the lost film. And when you go here, it says Blood and Ice, an account of the lost Conan film. And this is talking about a secretive film from 1934 being developed between Willis O'Brien and Robert E. Howard himself, which would be an incredible combination. Now, with this, we have Willis O'Brien, which most of you know is most famous for the 1933 film King Kong, along with Mighty Joe Young. And he'd had other films like The Lost World, The Last Days of Pompeii, and many, many more. We're not going to name them all here. He's got a very prolific list. He was a great stop-motion animator, and his work to this day still speaks for itself with the quality and the realism he brought to whatever he worked on. Willis O'Brien is one of those legendary talents that will always be considered as such, as with Robert E. Howard. Now, with this article, it was stating that Willis O'Brien and Robert E. Howard were working together in Robert E. Howard's waning years. He was starting to have some mental health issues, and his mother was dying, and he wasn't in the best state of mind. But supposedly, this article states he was working with Willis O'Brien on a proposed Conan film called Blood and Ice. Now, in this story, we have some characters. Conan, of course, number one, but he's been robbed of his memory. Elgin, who is saved by Conan when he's being attacked by werewolves. Allegra, Elgin's love interest, who isn't all that she seems. Galdic, the wizard and the sorcerer that is after Conan, has failed in many attempts to defeat him and has resorted to robbing Conan of his memories and sent him on a path of decline where eventually he won't know who he is at all or what his purpose in the world is. And then we have a couple dragons called Slag and Slitho who live in the center of the earth, beneath the earth's surface, and they are time eaters, it's exactly kind of what it sounds like. And they are the ones responsible for giving Galdic his sorcerer's powers. Now, the script as outlined here, and I'm going to be putting the pages up, so if you actually want to read the whole synopsis, you can. I won't bore you with it here. But the movie opens, you have a lone rider, he's beset by werewolves, and a mysterious stranger comes out, bearded, mustached, and a true warrior who kills the werewolves and fights them off. And it's revealed to be Conan. Elgin is kind of put out because the guy can't really identify himself, but Elgin has some abilities of his own, and he takes Conan to his apothecary, and together they restore some of his memories, and Conan's starting to get a better idea of who he is. But along the way, as they're traveling to get Conan more help, and they're going to Iranistan, or more specifically the city of Anshan, they are separated, and Conan starts losing his memory again, and Elgin falls in love with a woman named Allegra, who is in the sorcerer's employ of Galdic, and only to find out so is his apothecary. And while they're separated, Conan starts to lose his memory again. Some circumstances unfold where Conan and Allegra end up being kidnapped, and Elgin has to go gather Conan's people to lead an assault to free Conan and Allegra, and ends up restoring all of Conan's memory. And I'm leaving out certain plot points, which you can read if you really want to know. And together, Um, they are led by Galdic to the dragons at the center of the earth, where Conan fights and slays them. And then the ending is left untold in this article. And we're going to read the introduction, and then we'll read the epilogue, kind of give you a little about what's going on. But that was the basic gist of the plot. So really fun. And you could really see with like werewolves and dragons and magic and sorcery where the stop motion animation of Willis O'Brien would really add an element to this film if this film was real, right? And how great would it have been to have that happen? Now, let's read the introduction. It says, in 1934, Willis O'Brien was fresh from his success as a chief production designer for King Kong. He was looking for new material to translate into film when he happened upon the work of a little-known Texan, a writer of pulp fiction named Robert E. Howard. In a highly secretive venture, they began to develop an outline for an epic film adaptation of Howard's most memorable creation, Conan. The project never got further than the planning stage due to Howard's untimely and tragic death in 1936. Heartbroken, O'Brien abandoned the project. This collaboration might never have come to light had I not attended a recent auction of RKO Pictures memorabilia. Upon purchasing a desk once owned by Willis O'Brien, I discovered a secret compartment, which contained a number of production drawings for the ill-fated movie, along with notes for the plot. I had done my best to stitch together these scraps into a coherent unit which might suggest the grandeur of the masterpiece that never was. Charles Alexander Piltdown. Now pay attention to that name because it's going to come into play here in a few minutes. Let's go to the epilogue. Now the epilogue, and of course as I'm doing this, you're going to see some illustrations, and the illustrations that I'm showing were done by Sandy Plunkett, and they're fun illustrations, great art. So let's get to the epilogue. 1,000 questions arise when viewing this long-lost material. Who were the artists working on this film? Were any actors cast for the leads or any footage shot? And why was this venture so secret that no mention of it has ever been found in either Howard's or O'Brien's journals? The answer to this last question, at least, might be speculated upon. Quite possibly, O'Brien was under contract to RKO Pictures at the time, and this project could have constituted a serious breach of contract. And questions arise about the story itself. For certain aspects of the writing are not characteristically Howard. For example, Conan is a less dynamic presence than one would expect. Instead of gaining his own freedom from the evil wizard's prison, this task is accomplished by his friend Elgin. But perhaps this inconsistency can be explained. We have a rendering of Conan at the prow of a war canoe, gliding through a hellish underworld with a wizard, Galdic, looking on. Yet no mention of the scene appears in the written notes. Clearly, major parts of the synopsis and major revisions to it have been lost or destroyed. And of course, the reader must be wondering about the ending to Blood and Ice, or rather, the lack of one. Someday it may be appropriate to publish all the scraps found in the secret compartment of O'Brien's desk, but as of this writing, I have chosen to omit a small percent. Howard gave this film a dark, even morbid conclusion, worthy of the writing of his close friend H.P. Lovecraft. Even by today's more liberal standards, I believe this ending too shocking and extreme to put into print. One must remember that this plot was being formulated at the end of Howard's life, while his mother lay in her deathbed. Only this could account for writing so feverish and disturbing, so please forgive my prudish restraint and enjoy the best parts of the story. C.A.P. or Charles Alexander Piltdown. Now, if this article is to be believed, then this film was being made by Willis O'Brien and Robert E. Howard secretly. And of course, there was the buying of this so-called desk that Willis O'Brien owned that had a secret compartment. Now, there's a few clues to this being a hoax. One, there's no notes beyond what's put in here that anyone can find that can accurately say that these things existed, right? That this was something that was set in motion. The other one is the name of the person writing the article, Charles Alexander Piltdown. Now, that name, put together from a few things in history, should give you a clue that this is a joke being had on the reader by Roy Thomas. And if you think about the name, think about the Piltdown Man hoax from 1912. It would fool the world for 40 years, and until it was exposed in the 1950s, I believe around 1953. All right, and this guy, Charles Dawson, with his archaeologists, they forged a find in Piltdown, a village in Sussex, England, where they combined the jaw of an ape with the skull of a man, put them together, and those parts missing. And for years, it was believed that this was the skull of the missing link. And it was accepted and embraced worldwide until technology caught up and they were able to expose it. It was said that this skull was 500,000 years old and it was only a couple hundred years old. So all of it was exposed. It was all a hoax. So are we to believe an article by a guy who's taken the name Charles from Charles Dawson and Piltdown from the Piltdown Man hoax from Piltdown, Sussex, England, right? And it all leads to a strange uh, concoction of a joke being played on the reader. So if it is, it's a grand fun joke. But what I propose is a what if. Now, this is most assuredly Roy Thomas having some fun. But when he puts Willis O'Brien and Robert E. Howard in the same sentence, your brain can't help but go to the old Marvel days of what if and conjure up the what if scenario. This film was actually a thing that was real and was being made, and how grand it would have been, right? And I, for one, would have loved a Robert E. Howard and Willis O'Brien collaboration. I don't know if you have, but let me know in the comments below. But I thought this was a bit of fun, hoax aside, and a great what if for a piece of history and time, which could be enshrouded in mystery. And just the what if element of Howard and O'Brien working together is just a great piece of imagination from Roy Thomas. I would love for something like this to be real. It would have been incredible. Do you think that in this article there are any hints of any kind of truth at all, or do you think it's complete fiction made up by Roy Thomas? I am on the side of a complete fiction, but the what if aspects of this article just completely make me giddy to no end. Just the thought of Howard and O'Brien working together would have been so grand, so great, and such a fun picture. And just to see Conan put a Conan movie put together in a different time era with stop motion animation would have been something of its own. And I can only imagine like the films of Sinbad with a great imagination, Jason and the Argonauts. Of course, not by O'Brien, but we can go with Mighty Joe Young and stuff like that with those creatures. And where his prodigies worked on, like Son of Kong and things like that. Just what kind of great creatures we would have got out of a film like this. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Were you aware of this hoax, of this article that Blood and Ice, the Lost Conan films of the 1930s? And if so, do you think there's any truth in it at all? Or do you think it's all just Roy Thomas having a bit of fun? Because I think it's that, of course. But the what if, the what if, the what if. Let me know if you guys like to engage in those what if scenarios in your mind, if it sends your imagination reeling or not. But that's it. Just a bit of fun for today's Savage Saturday comic review. And until next time, keep it casual.